evening, good morning, and a warm hello to everybody who's joining us on our distributed channels all over the World Wide Web. You found the right place. Exactly here is the action. As we have today the pleasure of Vaidya Aiyer, even that I goofed it with spelling the name correct, you will help me and help me not to lose my face, as I prefer to do it in a proper way instead of saying "we," yeah, which was what you offered in the presentations to try to get it right. It is a pleasure to have you with us. You are the founder, CEO of Pillir. You are the man to talk to if we are going for no code, low code. And we are very curious and we are excited. So, welcome to our show, and please introduce yourself a bit and talk to the audience about a bit about your career, your background, and most exciting, why you found Pillar.
The pleasure is all mine, gentlemen. The name is Vaidya Aiyer. As a
Idea. Okay.
Vaidya Aiyer. And as I said before, you can call me V. A lot of people call me V. That's totally fine with me. No pressure. In terms of why, I'm here, the pillar and the background and everything. I started my career, writing code about say close to 30 years ago, and I spent 25 of that in the SAP space, ERP SAP space. So I started, my first exposure to SAP was the green screens of SAP, the mainframe days. If you guys remember, I used to write those ABAP code and the JCL and old days. It kind of shows my age, which is not a good thing. But I've always been in the programming coding sense. Always been a technical guy at heart. I'm still a technical guy at heart. But over the period of time, being in the ERP space, SAP space, I moved to functional and major rollouts around the globe and everything. And from a business standpoint, I've always focused on supply chain, manufacturing. Those have been my domains. Those are the customers that I've rolled out with, large ERP instances, and all of those things. And in the late 90s, if I can switch a little bit on the parallel, I was in the Bay Area doing the whole .com boom and the bust. So that really put that bug in me, the entrepreneurial bug in me to go through this, right? So anyway, long story short, I went to the bus cycle, came back to the SAP space, started rolling out and other things. I used to run a venture prior to this about services, about building applications, around SAP. And before that, I've, custom coded, done a lot of development in SAP, just like, every large SAP. Nothing new over that. But that is when I realized, when I stepped out of SAP and I was building applications, I saw a view of the outside world of SAP, and I realized the big difference, right? You do so fast in this world outside SAP, and when it comes to SAP or ERPs, it is so complex. You need so many people. We talk timelines in months and years. And I reached a point in that venture where I could not scale in terms of talent and people and other things. So honestly, this all started just as a way to solve my own problem. I did not know the word no code, low code. I knew rapid development. I mean, that's a concept been around.
That's a 90s concept, yeah.
Exactly. So I started building tools to really speed up the process. Wherever there was big pains, started easing that with tools. It graduated to a framework, and then eventually, as a platform, and that's how Pillar was born. So that's the story.
Cool. And the old days when I started coding, I was still fuddling and fumbling around with COBOL, C++, Pascal.
Oh, I
I
remember
tried a
that.
bit of Java, and the world is safer without me as a coder. Trust me. Yeah? So I did my fair piece of saving that world already, becoming not a programmer. But what you showed us, what is capable, what is feasible to do with, if you have a decent process knowledge and a commercial sense, and you want to make something happen with good gut feeling and a normal sense for the reality, you can start to design on the basis of processes something which can become an application or parts of a program. Is that correctly told a bit, from the story in general?
Yes, absolutely. You described it perfectly. So to me and to my whole team, the whole local no code, or whichever way you want to call it, is really a means to an outcome, right? A business outcome. The business outcome is your business wants applications really, really quickly, really. And that's where, as an IT department, we always have, struggled to catch up. It does take time and effort and everything to, get that. And this whole thing about what we do is really to increase the speed, the velocity of applications that the business wants. And the fact that you don't have to depend on very expensive talent. Not only expensive, also a shortage of talent, in terms of people who know the ERP processes and the coding. And ERP has become more complex than what it was 10, 20 years ago. It's more and more getting complex every day. So it reduces the dependency on highly skilled talent, increases the velocity of applications, and really meets that business needs very, very quickly. Right? That is what we are about. Now, the way we do that is, I'm sure a lot in the audience would be very familiar with this as well, which is this kids today learn programming using these Lego blocks. And this was really invented by MIT. It's called a Scratch. And the beautiful concept about this is Lego blocks, right? You cannot put a round on a square peg and, it's going to work. So that's how the programming, codes and the blocks are built. We literally built our whole platform taking, on that Scratch from MIT. So kids like 8 to 10 years or 12 years who are used to this Lego blocks, you really can't get more simpler than that. I mean, you still need to have the logic and the mindset of building an application, but it's about putting Lego blocks together and generating that business outcome. It's all about the business outcome for us.
I'm already a big fan of yours and the idea, because you took one of my beloved most example pictures of the Lego bricks, the Lego blocks, which makes it so easy to get not only into people's brain, but also in their heart, because everybody nearly knows the Lego blocks, the bricks, and is constructing things. So it is the level of easiness, which is an enabler. And I can make a cheap joke on that one, on the skill part, such as even state servants are capable of coding now. Hallelujah.
It's getting embarrassing.
Does remind me of a video clip that I've seen on YouTube of it's a representation of a coder, a programmer watching a user representative testing a product, but it's done with blocks. And there's that panel of here's a square hole, and here's a round hole, here's a moon-shaped one, and they pick up a piece and they put it in the correct hole, and you only see the programmer's face, and you're like, yeah, they got it. Then they take this other piece. It's the wrong shape. It's a round one, but it fits in the square hole, and the programmer gets a concerned look. Then they take the moon-shaped one, and it fits in the square hole, and it's every piece fits in the same one, and by the end they're crying. So Yeah, I absolutely get where you're coming with the programming with blocks,
Yeah.
but it can't be too simple or it doesn't work. And I
I
like that this approach that we've gotten to, what we call low code, no code today is different from what we once had when things were described as a drag and drop interface, which everyone looked at as just, consumery or for stupid people. And
12 years ago, Marshall, I was taken by surprise when people approached me with some frameworks and with some that I could work with something like visual shapes, put them together in processes one after another, visual programming, and it worked. So that was when it started to become quite a serious matter. And I don't want to make it on the jokey side that I'm coming with the aspect of the Lego bricks and the easiness, but it is the compelling opportunity I honest see that this is enabling a lot of power which is kept under the table till now. Now you encourage people on your platform and probably on some others to try it. So, what is your observation on the acceptance and the curiosity in the organizations? Are they open for the concept?
I'm glad you asked the question. And Marshall, you also brought up a couple of things. I think it kind of ties to the same thing. So um, let me highlight this is the way I think about it. You can make the programming easy with the Lego blocks, right? But that doesn't mean that you don't need the logical mind of a programmer. Two very different things, right? What I've seen is like if I take Lego blocks that really could be anything. A very easy way of putting the application, and we take it to people who don't have the logical mindset of building an application, and then you change that. The third dimension is the complexity of the application. Anyone can make a very simple data entry, application, but we operate in the supply chain space, right? And you increase the third dimension of the complexity, and it falls. So I want to highlight the fact that just because we put this way of putting the applications together, there are two other dimensions. One is the people themselves who are using it. What kind of governance do you have? What kind of training do you have? And their aptitude in building it. Not necessarily, and this is irrespective of Pillar, right? Any low code, no code. That is the aptitude and governance and policies. And the third is the complexity of the application itself. Getting someone to build a one-page application is very different than doing a product lifecycle management, master data management, warehouse management kind of an application. So those are the three dimensions that we need to put together. So coming to your question, Ralph, about what is the acceptance? The acceptance is different based on these three dimensions that come together, right? So if you go to, I've come across people where they are excellent programmers. They love programming and they do these complex applications. There is a lot of disbelief about can you really build this kind of an application using this low code, no code? And honestly, if I was in their place, I would think the same thing. Right? It's very logical, right? I'm building a supply chain, warehouse management. How do you really put this together without writing code? Very, very logical question. So you really have to, show it to believe it. That's one kind of, feedback that I get, right? On the other side, there are people who have been programmers in the past lives. They understand the logical mind of it. They face this real pressures of, I'm not able to hire people. My people are in different time zones, and I've got this 75 applications to do. I actually have customers who got 50, 75 applications to do in the 12 months, 24 months. Next impossible to do those kind of applications. And they would be like, yeah, if this thing works and I get this application, I'm all out for it, right? Whereas if you go to a citizen developer, as they call it, right, which is the third dimension from the aptitude, and you talk to them about building a supply chain application, they'll be like, "Oh, no, I'm not doing it. Like, I don't even know that." But if you talk to them about very simple form-based applications, they'll be okay with it. So my point is, I see different responses from different people based on these three dimensions. Am I explaining that? Am I answering your question?
Yeah.
Three different moving parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I just want to step in because out of my curiosity, because there is a flow of acceptance and curiosity we observed as industry analysts. And we are having the conversation not just only with you, but we had some chaps from Creatio with us, and we will invite some others. And we have touched base in this scenario with our folks from Zoho and Freshworks and others. So there is a vivid ecosystem on abilities to do some no-code, low-code. So I'm asking myself, what is your perspective? What have you observed? Do they run in organizations only with one no-code, low-code platform? Or do they try first several platforms to then identify probably their favorite?
Good question. So Ralph, you mentioned earlier about COBOL, Pascal, and
Yeah.
all of us know all the different languages, right? The way I
Dinosaur stuff. Dinosaur stuff.
But even now you've got .NET, you've got Java, you've got JavaScript, right? So you have different programming languages to solve different aspects of a problem. SAP has got its own programming language, ABAP. Oracle has got its own, right? We don't think about having one programming language that will do for the whole universe, for the whole world. You don't think about one programming language for web applications for the finance industry versus web applications for the supply chain industry versus mobile application. It is different programming languages. And that's the way I think about low code, no code. It is going to be different. You cannot have one low code or no code that just solves every problem for every company, enterprise, startups. There is so many different aspects of developers, right?
Yeah.
You need to have a very verticalized solution for solving a specific problem. You mentioned a couple names, Creatio and a few others, right? Everybody, the way, and in the earlier days of low code, you used to have a common tool which said, okay, I'm going to do everything, more horizontal. The problem of that is you are horizontal, but you're not deep. So the true people who needs to buy into your low code, and this is just my opinion, it's not the citizen developers who need to buy into low code or no code. It is really I'm talking from an enterprise IT standpoint, right?
Yeah.
If an IT department doesn't buy into that, it's not going to be a success. And for them to buy into that, you need to have the true depth. And even within an IT department, you've got the CRM team, you've got the ERP team, you've got the e-commerce team. They all have different needs. So you need to be having a tool or a product that can do their complete job. So to give you an example, from our standpoint, we focus on the ERP, SAP, more SAP. We also have Oracle customers, but we started in the SAP because that's where my background is, all my team member background is. The way you integrate in SAP, the way you put the logic together in SAP, the way you have objects in SAP is very different than anything else. So you really, really have to be vertically integrated to understand the database structure, the logic structure, the programming language, which is ABAP, which is again, very, very old language as well. The visualization aspect of it, the roles, the authorizations. So there is a lot of things over there. So the way I see it is the whole low code, no code space is evolving. In the earlier days of low code, no code, I will say 1.0, you had the horizontal tools like, Mendix and OutSystems and others. I think we are probably in 2.0 or maybe inching towards 3.0 where we are all vertical. The names that you mentioned, most of them are all vertical, Ralph. And and that's what we are. We are focused on the supply chain. We will not be good players for HR or things like that. But when it comes to supply chain, where you have use cases where people are in the warehouses, no connectivity, asset-heavy industries, steel manufacturing, offshore refineries, we are the guys. We live and breathe that. And our low-code, no-code is really meant to address that kind of complex use cases.
Cool.
So you are focusing on the IT department, or are you focusing on what's nowadays called the citizen developer?
So,
and do they need different tools?
It just reminds me of my prior. So, in my prior career, I also used to do business intelligence, and I've been through those tools. If you remember those days where drag and drop business intelligence, reporting tool, which went all through the enterprise, and the enterprise had to pull it back because of governance and too many reports generated and everything, right? So if I relate that to now, and again, I go back to the 3 dimensions of, your complexity, all of those things. The problem that we solve are very heavy, enterprise heavy use cases. So we focus on the tech savvy people within the company. So that is really the first phase.
Okay.
Like if I don't get the enterprise architects, the C-level executives, and the people who really, hold the keys to the kingdom, the ERP is the core of any enterprise. It's the heart, right? So people who maintain that heart, if they don't buy into it, I don't think there is of much value if the citizen developers buy into it, because you really need that, right? So citizen developers is absolutely important, what they call a citizen developer, absolutely. But I don't think that is the first thing in my head. The low code, no code is, it's not a silver bullet. It's a toolkit, and you have, at least in my head, you have to go in phases to get into that stage. There's a lot of tools that focus on citizen developers, and they need a little different kind of. The Lego blocks might be the same, but they need a little different kind of adaptability and things to build, and the type of use cases will be different. Whereas over here, it's a little different. So that's the way we think about it. IT first, the mission critical application providers first, then the second level, which is kind of in between the super business analyst and tech savvy business analyst, and then the end user kind of things. Right?
So if we're talking about verticals, this means, to me anyway, that the low code, no code solution in any industry is going to look very different from any other. So, I mean, does that mean that what is considered low code in one setting would be still considered hopelessly complex in another? And
I don't know if I would use the word complex, Marshall, but I think it is not a very clean fit. Can you use Pillar to build an HR application? 100% yes. And same with any other tool could as well. Can you do it? 100% yes. But the amount of effort and the knowledge and everything you do, not just in building it and maintaining it, it will be so high that you might question, okay, why am I doing this low code in the first place if my developer can do faster, right? So you really have to be focused in being that vertically integrated. And like we claim 20x faster, and that which is a high number. For me to claim 20 times faster, I have to claim it around the SAP workspace, around the integration, around the deployment, around the roles, authorizations, around the complex use cases, right? I cannot claim 20x faster for a finance industry web application, right? But in my domain, yeah, I will be. Can you use Pillar to build an application for a bank? Yeah, sure, but it may not be 20 times faster. It might be a little less.
Right, but if an app developer from the finance world was looking over the shoulder of a developer in the HR world, watching them put together a piece, would they be able to recognize that this has received the low code, no code treatment, or would it, potentially look, just more complex to them? Is there low code, less code in some places than others?
Yes, so they would definitely look at it and say, "Oh yeah, this is low code or no code." There is no question about it. But they will miss the accelerators that come on top of the platform, right? So in our case, when we say the platform is the platform, but there is this small accelerators which give great value. So for example, we are the only ones who can do the integration with SAP such that you don't have to generate those endpoint services. We are the only ones who can actually convert ABAP, which is a 40-year-old language and which is based on COBOL. We can convert that language into these Lego blocks, right? So we have some applications built on top of our platform, warehouse management, asset management. So these accelerators are meant for what we do. Can a person from a different industry come in and look at it and say, is it low code, no code? Yeah, 100%. They'll look at the platform and say, oh, it's Lego blocks. But they will not be able to leverage accelerators, right? Whereas somebody in the finance industry, will have accelerators for the bank, which we may not have. So that's what I'm trying to make the difference. It's a platform, and then this is content at a broad level, which really adds. This might look very small, but this really, really adds amazing acceleration and value to the people who see it.
So that's a very fair perspective, such as to see that the IT department in general is your sponsor. They do see a lot of benefits. Following a research in Europe, it's 70 to 67%, whereas the specialized vertical departments do have their trouble in getting their things sorted, their extra worlds created. It's around about 42% which are happy with it. Is that something you would share from what you told us right now? And do you observe this with your customers as well?
At a broad level, yes. I don't know the numbers. I'm hearing this for the first time. But at a broad level, yes, for the type of problems that we solve, right? So our problems are, again, if I put this pyramid of the complexity of use cases, we are at the top of the pyramid in terms of complexity. So when we go and talk to customers, IT has to be involved. They are the first people to buy in because they hold the ERP, they hold the keys to the kingdom. And honestly, I've been in that shoes as well. If there is anything remotely not there yet, I wouldn't be open to opening up the doors, right? Mm-hmm. So the people who hold that fortress, that fort, are the people to buy in first. Once they are in, then you can go to the next level of this one level lower IT, tech savvy people, right? They could come in any title or form. Sometimes they're also within the IT, by the way, Ralph. It's not like they are in the business side, they're also within the IT, but they're not technical people, they are process people, right? So we have customers who would, where some of the process people, analysts, will do these applications. And sometimes they might take the application to its logical end, which means build the full application, or they might do 50, 60, 70% of the application. And for the balance 30%, they might get to a technical people and person and say, okay, connect this to SAP or Oracle or whatever, and do that, right? So it just depends on the use case.
Well, there's a comment in from Kevin Grant, and that pretty much sums it up. I guess we're done today. Thanks for coming, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, well,
I absolutely agree with this, and I couldn't have put this better, Kevin. I think this is what it did. Other people's business, they want the outcome. That's all they care about, right? And that's rightfully what they should be.
Yes, but there's a caveat to it. So if I now offer this ability to get the thing done to basically everybody, I'm quite sure that I'm experiencing another Lotus Notes moment where I get humongously big, dirty databases of some application or another application that nobody can use because they can't even find it. So, which leads to some extent to the topic of governance. How do you take care of that?
So that ties in very, very nicely to what I was saying before about the end users are not in the beginning of adoption. They're at the tail end of the adoption, right? And when we have the governance policies, you really need to have governance policies for different kinds of audiences, right? If IT is developing these complex applications, IT already has got it great governance. There's nothing new that we are going to do for the IT guys. We actually piggyback on their existing governance based on their system of records. So it could be an Active Directory, it could be whatever transport DevOps methodology they use, right? So we tie in very nicely over there. But as you go to the next set of users, there needs to be more governance and little smaller area to play with, so that, as you rightly said, it doesn't become one of the Lotus nodes with 1,000 databases that nobody knows how to manage it, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we put the governance where you don't let the next set of people build some databases. They only have to leverage the services which the IT has built for it, right? So we kind of go in that direction, where the administrators can open up a little bit based on who the audience. If it is the IT audience, they will open up the whole thing. But as they go to the next layer, they will put the rules and regulations on top of their existing policies and make it a little bit more narrower, and then narrower, and then narrower, right? So that's the way we kind of do it. We don't try to reinvent the whole governance. Our whole policy is enterprises have got a good governance. We just build on top of it and kind of narrow it as we go across the audiences.
Yeah, well done, Johnson. I agree. But when the day comes, there are smart, clever people which are doing citizen development, and we do have these initiatives here in Europe where young people are researching and they get prizes for being innovative. So I trust it's cool that there is an initiative and a lot of engagement, such as let's try something new. And I believe that from my perspective, and how do you see this, Vaidya, is that from the strategic perspective, the industry is needing low code, no code desperately.
So from a strategic standpoint, I don't think there is any other choice but for the industries to adopt the low code, no code. That is multiple reasons we all know about, right? The talent shortage, the kids coming out of college, want to go to Tesla and Amazon and Google, not the oil and gas and a manufacturing company IT, not as much. When I was graduating, it would be like, oh, awesome, I got a job in GE or GM. Now it's like, oh, I got a job in Tesla and Google, right? It's changed, right? So the audience, the graduates coming out are not going into IT, they're going into software. That's one. Plus you have the aging population, and we all know about the skill set, the talent problem. And the landscape is getting more complex. Cloud has made it a lot of things easy, but it is also made more complex. There's just so many moving parts, right? So with all of those things, Ralph, I absolutely believe the low code, no code is here to stay. The way I envision this is, a few years ago, we all used to procure hardware. I mean, you remember those days? Let's get a server because we got this application to build, right? Those days are gone today with the cloud, right? That the cloud just eliminated that. We just skip that whole hardware procurement and setup stage and directly go and say, okay, I can just click a few buttons. I've got the infrastructure ready. Let's start building. I believe the whole low code, no code has got that capability to do for the application space, where we can get it. A day will come when we can get to the stage where you have a business requirement. I have this pre-built set of Lego blocks that I put together and just go forward. So we can literally automate that initial heavy lifting of an application. Okay, what systems to integrate? What APIs to maintain? Should it be online, offline? Should it be on this device? What if the device is upgraded? All of those heavy lifting work is automated in a low code, no code place, right? So why put the brightest minds, which is already scarce, to solve the problems which others have already solved? It does not make sense. So we have to put the brightest minds in the more value addition, where they can increase the velocity of applications to business, and not really solving the problems, the mundane problems which everybody has solved on the application side. Just leverage that. And that is exactly what low code, no code is. That is exactly what we do. When we talk about the business side of it, or even the application developers, like when you go and buy these Lego blocks, you can take individual blocks and put it together, or you can get a pre-made block for an airplane wing or tail and put it together, right? So that's how this kind of works. So I absolutely see and look forward for the day where all of us can focus on the velocity of business applications coming out and churning out and driving the business outcome, and not really have to worry about the database structure and the lines and all of those things.
Enjoying my Miami Vice moment with Don Johnson doing that comment. I have to be with
Dan, by the way.
Dan. Well,
yeah, you need new glasses.
I need new glasses, but you spoil now my my joke, such as I wanted to give him a Tubbs moment when he would have been Don Johnson, to create the Miami Vice moment again. Is the shadow IT, is that where the IT people are so afraid of, step one, and step two, that they might get taken away some of their jobs they love, instead of connecting cables and doing the nasty stuff or bureaucratic stuff. They sometimes are happy that they can do some coding as well, and allowed to, and that they are the bright minds in the organization which can save the world. Yeah. And being a savior is always nicer than being the one who is cutting costs and chopping off people. And cutting costs is an important aspect, as I see in one of the overwhelming things where low code, no code is a very nice helping hand, to my knowledge, is to evolutionize or recycle or keep old code alive.
So,
what do customers say about this? And is this one of the diamonds in what you can deliver to your customers?
So I will rephrase a little bit, Ralph.
Please do so.
The way we think about it is, a customer has invested a lot in legacy, right?
Yeah.
What is critical in that is the legacy application logic, not necessarily the code. The code is old. So we differentiate that. Now, so what we do is we mine the diamonds in the application. So what I mean by that is, so you've got the low code and the no code, and we call this transform code. And a lot of people would be like, what the hell is transform code? And the transform code is exactly this, where you have a legacy application, and we have implemented this for SAP, where if you have a SAP custom application you build, we actually convert that into an application on the no code. And when I say converted, we don't convert, literally we don't use the code. We mine that legacy application for all the application logic, the user experience, the standard objects it calls, and everything possibly, right? We mine as much as we can. So we mine it on one side, we understand what has been done, even if that application was built 20 years ago. We mined it, we understand what has been done. And then on the other hand, we build it from scratch all the way up. So you have a new database structure, you have a new application logic. I mean, the new application components, it's Lego blocks. It's not COBOL commands or ABAP commands on one side, right? It's Lego blocks. You have the user experience. The user experience is no longer a client GUI user experience. It could be a web application. It could be a mobile application. It could be on an RF scanner, whatever that is. So our uniqueness, I said earlier about, we are very vertically integrated, and there is some nuggets and accelerators, and this is one of them, right? We are totally unique in the sense that we are the only low code, no code provider who can even claim to do this and show a demo and a live demo of actually having customers done it, right? So we can actually get to that level. So all of the enterprises that we speak to has got tons of legacy applications.
Yeah.
You can build very easily on a no code, but what the logic and everything that somebody built 10, 15 years ago and they're gone, right? It's not about the toolkit. It's about having that knowledge and the experience to build it again. If I can leverage that logic and experience, even if it is 60%, 70%, 40%, whatever that is, I got a jump start on what was invested 10, 20 years ago in the application, right? And now, this new application, which is cloud native, microservices space. I'm not putting a wrapper on the legacy code. I'm taking the logic and building it again from scratch, totally cloud native. And whatever is not, transformed, or, most customers will add some new logic to it, some enhance the business process.
Yeah.
You add that on, you put the Lego blocks on top of it. So I said earlier about you can build the application using individual blocks, or if I'm building a plane, what if I get the tail and the wing and everything? So when I convert it from legacy, I get the wings and the tail and everything. It may not be connected together, but then now I can put the Lego blocks and connect it together and publish it. So we are absolutely unique in this industry. We obviously implemented it for SAP, given where we operate and everything. But yeah, we have customers that are already asking about, can you convert COBOL? Can you convert .NET and all of those things? So yeah, we are definitely thinking in that direction.
Which sort of answers, or well, makes the yank that I wanted to pull on your chain a little less hard. Because you're saying low code, no code are here to stay. And I would utterly agree to that. So with all of my heart, yeah. Actually, it's probably going more to the no code area. So now, on the other hand, we are living in a platform world where, well, the big gorillas are taking even more than they already have. So they're expanding their footprint and are doing that. And you said that part of the business is to re-standardize custom logic. So the basic question that comes to my mind then is, why don't the big vendors take care of that themselves? Or the other way around, what is a tenable defensive position for a specialist like you are? I said, yanking your chain. I don't want to diminish you.
No, you bring up a very good point, Thomas. I mean, there are big vendors, Microsoft, SAP, Oracle.
Yeah, all of them, yeah.
All of it, right? And the reality is, if we can do it, they can do it too. In fact, you could flip it the other way. We are doing it because they're not doing it, right? If they would be doing it, we don't really need to do it, right? I obviously cannot speak for the large enterprises. Yeah, I'm sure they've got priorities and other things. But from my perspective and my team's perspective, we don't really pay too much attention on the other large platform providers. They're in our periphery vision, obviously, but our focus is customer. If I can solve the customer problem, that is all that matters, right? Tomorrow, I can't say what the large enterprises will do. Maybe they'll come up with one. I know they're all making movements over there. We all know that. They're already making movements over there. But there are some very exceptional benefits that we have, which the large companies will take some time. So, for example, we have spent about 150 man years on building what we have. It's not a small amount. And it's not 150 man years that you will put so many people in. It is built on top of each year, right? So, yes, the large enterprises can do it, but it takes time to do it, whereas we already have it. And it's available now, like today, right? So when a business has got this problem to do this, we have a supply chain issue right now. That's the biggest thing solving the whole. The problem is today. And to solve the problem today, you need tools and solutions today, like right now. When the large companies come, they will do what they need to do. But today, I'm focused on solving the customer problem, and that is all it matters, at least to me.
Okay, so what you're basically saying is there's a time advantage that is unlikely to diminish.
Yes, there's a time advantage, there is a technology advantage, and it's all about solving the problem now. I think that is the most critical thing. Tomorrow's problem, I don't think anybody can, forecast.
Which is
You
the
know,
part
if
of
you
the
did,
world,
it would be great.
which is the part of the world that I didn't mention. We all want everything now,
Yeah.
just right this time.
Yeah, and inertia is probably the most powerful force in the universe. Things do not want to move unless you push them.
Yeah.
And here we go for the part. Do you encourage people to share in a community what they have designed on, for instance, your Pillar no code, low code platform, so that there is a marketplace or a sharing place for designed apps on your platform?
So we do have a place where we have started launching applications based on what our customers and partners have done. But we have yet to come to a place where it is a online community. We do have communities where of customers who kind of talk together and do it. But we are still in that path in terms of a community, online community where people can come. But that is definitely in the plans, Ralph. It is definitely coming. We're just not there yet. At least to a full extent. Right? They started on it, not that.
But then you embrace the idea that sharing is caring, and that this is a good move, such as one of the positive parts in the open source community idea is sharing and utilizing. Yeah,
100%. In fact, when people share stories about low code, no code, it doesn't really matter it's Pillar or it's really something else. The more people share stories about low code, no code, and how no code or low code can solve these complex problems, that is itself is valuable. At the end of the day, there is many players in this industry. Different players tackle different problems, and customers are smart enough to figure out what's right for them and what's not. But I think for the industry to mature, for the wider acceptance of it, if all the players can come together with a common community to share the experiences and the success stories of no code, right? And that will only help us, all of us, the whole wide community, not just the industry, but the customers, the partners, everyone.
Yeah, but speaking of the industry, I'm wondering if maybe we've made a bit of a mistake or gotten off on the wrong foot by creating a category that is just called low code, no code. It's similar to what happened, I guess, with Sugar CRM back in the day when they were the open source vendor. And if you wanted to talk about them, they were like, "Oh, they're the open source guys," and that pretty much ended discussion. That's what they did. If someone talks about Pillar, well, they're the low code, no code guys. Or someone talks about Creatio and says the same thing. When it's obvious that what you are able to do is, you create low code, no code business solutions. And is that message getting out enough, or have we, the analyst and reporting community, screwed you over?
So as I said earlier, Marshall, when I started this, I did not even hear the term low code, no code. I did not know for a long time about that term. It was all about solving the business problem faster, cheaper, economical, all of those things, right? So it's always about the business outcome. It's always about all the things that we talked about. I understand from an analyst standpoint, there is a need to club the players together into one bucket. So I get the need for that. But from a business standpoint, I think it's still all about the outcomes. Like when we go in sales calls, we don't really, yeah, we are low code, no code. Obviously, that's the label, that you put in the bucket. But we don't really talk too much about, oh, how cool is our tool as compared to some other tool. Sure, we think our tool is really, one of a kind. But it's really, are we able to solve that supply chain issue? Can I get you the inventory levels that you seek now? Can I get you updates from your drivers on where the trucks are into your ERP right now? Can I get your people in the factory or in the offshore refinery to do, safety checks and, really getting that. So it's always about that. In my head, the low code, no code is a means to an end. I understand the analyst community, putting it in a bucket. I guess that's how our industry works. But in our calls, we really talk about what outcome that the customer really wants.
Good. I'm glad.
Looking a little bit around what industry is and says. So there are a bunch of related industries. So you already said you are mining processes, where there is another category that says process mining. Yeah? Then you are saying automating. You are taking the software and automate it. There's another one called
RPA.
robotic process automation. So in how far do you see all these colliding?
Oh, there is some collision for sure, and the terms can get really confusing, and there is an overlap, right? But every technology always will have overlap with some other technology, but that is this differentiating aspect of it. The way I think about it is, you talked about process mining. Yes, you have a process mining, set of vendors who do the process mining and go through that. The way I think about it is, we are a step deeper than that, where we do application mining. You can do the process mining, but we do the application mining, which is what the transform code is about. We mine that legacy application, understand what has been done, and convert it into low code or a cloud native application. So it's the level underneath that, right? RPA is definitely at the end of the day, we all fall into automation, whether one way or the other, right? In my head, RPA is all about automating your processes. It could be gaps in the process, but if the wrong process, you're going to automate the wrong process, right? At a high level. Whereas we are more about taking that manual process away and bringing in digitization or an aspect of it. So we are more about filling the gaps. So it just depends on which technology we are talking about. We obviously, there has got to be an overlap to connect the two dots, right? To plug in. But the overlap is like this on the periphery, and you've got this core. RPA does tools. They do things that we don't do. Process mining does tools that we don't do. Similarly, we do things that they don't, right? So there is definitely some overlap, but I feel it is also needed to connect the dots. And as I said, a customer is smart enough to say which way to go and where to deep dive on it.
So cost saving is one aspect, making things running smoother if you have to clean old stuff, and to save knowledge. Those are three important aspects I take from what we have discussed yet. What did I leave out?
I would also add business velocity, right? The velocity of applications that you need to meet the business needs.
Yeah.
With every constraint that you mentioned about, cost and people and everything.
But this one, an important extra, a fourth one of the benefits we should, if we are going to the end of the hour, wrap together in a certain way, such as that these are the cool findings we found out in that we have a gold mine, if not a diamond mine, of knowledge, which we should get to the open and show it to the world.
Yes, there is a lot of good here. I mean, no code in general, low code in general, there's a lot of good here. Obviously, we, do some things which is better than anybody else in our domain. And I would highly encourage, the audience listening and, others to just try it out. I personally assure you'll be pleasantly surprised. You'll be so very pleasantly surprised, and it's so refreshing. I've been a programmer, in my past career. My team doesn't give me access to write code, but I've got, I do it as a hobby. I can do these applications, and trust me, it's amazing and it's unique. I would highly encourage people to check it out.
So instead of Lord of the Rings, we become Lords of the Code. Edward.
Awesome.
How do you see the market evolve?
How do I see the market evolve?
Or the low-code, no-code is in particular.
So I feel an enterprise will have multiple tools in their arsenal, in their tool belt, and they will use the right tool for the right problem. I do see enterprises having a CRM low code or a no code, and ERP or a supply chain no code, and a HR and no code, and they will just use the right toolkit. But there is nothing wrong in having multiple tools, by the way. Right? That's totally fine. That's how I see the market evolving. From an adoption standpoint, I do feel the IT department has to see the benefits first, which means the same number of people, they should be able to increase the velocity of applications, meet the business needs, really get that buy-in, not only from IT, from business as well. And then the adoption will happen, right? Jumping too ahead sometimes may not be the right thing. Like jumping to citizen developers, for example, right? There is definitely use cases for that. But that's how I see the adoption of, low code, no code. Eventually, this will be a common de facto for every company. I can't imagine a company a few years down the line not having a no code. The question would be when, for every company, which they have to decide, but it is not an if. I have already bet my paycheck. I'm betting my career on it. It's not a question of if. It is a question of when the train is moving. It's just a matter of timing as to when every company wants to jump into the bandwagon. And the train has got multiple compartments. It's okay to have multiple tools, multiple compartments, depending on what you do.
Okay, so we could call this a real paradigm shift, that over time, all development environments are going to move toward being low code. Is that fair to say?
I absolutely think it is an inflection point. It is revolutionary to some extent, going from what a drag and drop tool would do in the prior years to a full-blown no code or a low code, which generates applications on tons of enterprises and backends and front ends and everything. So it is absolutely revolutionary from that standpoint.
Is there a trend towards getting or merging low code into no code?
So to me, no code and low code is little different. In no code, the way I think about it is it's a set of Lego blocks. You put the Lego blocks and build the application.
Yeah.
But what if the Lego block is not enough for you and you have a toolkit to build your own Lego block? That is low code. So in no code becomes a part of the low code, but a low code is not no code, right? So that's the way we think about it. So in my head, when I say low code, it's got to include no code, but for certain use cases, for certain things, right? If there is a specific need for a customer where the Lego block is not already ready and need that unique Lego block, and I give a toolkit to build that Lego block, that is low code. That's the way we define it. So for certain customers, for the same customer, for certain use cases, it's a no code because they're not writing a single line of code. But for certain use cases, maybe they don't want to wait on us to release that Lego block. You don't want to have a vendor dependency. That defeats the purpose. So if you give them a toolkit to build their own Lego block, that's low code. So that's the way I think about it. No code is really a part of the low code in my head.
Okay, what is then the remaining need for high code or pro code?
So So pro code is again a different category in my head as compared to low code, right? Pro code is really meant for professional developers who really accelerate the development piece. The place where we operate, Thomas, is all about ERPs, SAP, and other things, right? We have to integrate an application into the fabric of they already have. We don't really build, like, no customers of ours will have a standalone application. They could be technically standalone, but I'm taking master data, my checks and transactional data. So we have to integrate it to that, right? So that's where we fall in. That is absolutely, as you rightly said, the pro code is there. I would put one more category, transform code, right? I'm also transforming legacy applications. This is all coming in. And we're all evolving as an industry. As I said, if I had the crystal ball, I think we all would be in a different place. But that's the way I see it. No code, low code, pro code, transform code is another one more category that I'll bet a lot of the low code, no code players will all jump. That's just a part of the evaluation. Going from transform evolutionary phase of the industry, right? Low code, no code, pro code, transform code, and so on.
Yeah, but it's not a zero-sum game. Reducing the need to code does not mean that there is extra code being added on.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
You have low code, no code, and then pro code, full code, and then extra code. And here's our double code solution.
No, I think you bring up a good point. It is not a zero-sum game. We absolutely need the development community. They are the only ones who can really take it to the next level. So it's not a zero-sum game at all. Whichever tool they use, and goes back to what the way we're thinking. Enterprise will have multiple tools at their arsenal. It just depends on what they use at the right time.
Okay, considering that we are still having bunches of questions and ideas and topics to discuss, but no time left, I suggest we make up a second appointment sooner or later and go on from there. And
would love
also considering your time, you probably are busy too, not only your team. So I think we should call it a wrap with one final question. If you had one wish for the low-code, no-code area, what would it be?
One wish for the low-code, no-code area, what would it be? A wider adoption and the industry coming together in a lot of respects. I think there's a lot of players who thinks it's a zero-sum game. It is not, absolutely not. And I think the industry players and the customers and partners really has to come together. That would be the one wish that I would have.
Perfect. Okay. And it seems like we didn't scare away the people so far.
No.
means we need to say an actual goodbye. And thanks for being in here. Also, thanks for the great comments that we had in between. So thanks to you, Vi. And with that, let's say bye and go backstage.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you, gentlemen.